Hello and welcome to this week's Purpose and Profit Sisterhood podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Jeanette Anderson, and I have the fabulous Deb Porter with me today. We're going to be talking about achieving sales results with listening. Most of you think sales is about talking, but it's really not. So we're going to be talking about how you can shift your thinking around that. Welcome, Deb. I'm glad you're here with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeanette.
Awesome. I'm going to tell you, of course, the official bio. Then we'll get the juicy behind the scenes details about her, most deepest, darkest secrets. And then we will get rocking on our topic of achieving sales results with listening. So Deb Porter is a seasoned, active listening expert. Spearheading Hold, Hearing Out Life Drama. With a passion for empowering business leaders and sales professionals, she is dedicated to elevating communication skills and driving direct impact on the bottom line. Deb provides mentorship that translates into real-life solutions ready for immediate implementation. Her approach to teaching active listening is effective and swift, making it accessible whether in live events or through online courses. So awesome. Thank you. I appreciate all that information about you. And I would love to hear, well, we're going to talk about how you got started on listening as a vehicle for anything. But first, tell us a little bit about something we wouldn't guess about you, something your friends don't even know.
Oh, not very many friends know that I'm a weaver, actually. I took up weaving when I was in my 20s, and it's something that's been with me. I've moved the loom through all of the moves that I've had. I actually have two now.
My goodness. Yeah, those are
Yeah,
not small.
they
So
are not small.
that takes up quite a bit of room. How long have you been weaving for?
So I started in my 20s and I'm 52 now. So it's probably
Been a while.
it's been a hot minute.
And so what kinds of things do you weave? Like, do you make cloth for clothing or what do you do?
Yeah, baby blankets, cloth. Yeah, lots
Oh,
of different things. Yeah.
amazing. That's so cool. And is that something that's your like secret passion or do you like share your stuff or sell it or, you know?
So what I discovered was I could get into flow when I'm weaving, and it's just a really good space for my mind. It's an outlet, just like other people might crochet or knit. It's my thing where I just get lost in it, and it's relaxing for me. So
Cool. That's very cool. All right, so let's talk about listening, which is kind of ironic. Um, how did you get started being so passionate about listening?
so um, in uh, how did I so let's start here again with a long the decades. It's sometimes it's hard to know exactly where to dig in.
Yeah.
Where I really became passionate about it, my husband actually was very ill for about 8 years, critically ill, and during that time family, friends, and coworkers, they really wanted to help and to listen, but so often what would happen is they would come, I would start to talk about what was going on, and they would offer me advice. And that was really the time in my life. I knew listening was important before that. My training all came before that. But it was during that time, my own personal experience, where I really needed people to just hear me and not give me advice, but to just hold space with me. That's when I really understood that, oh my gosh, that training that I had in my master's program, nobody else has had. People aren't taught how to listen. We're told to listen when we're little, but we're not taught how.
Okay, that's really cool. So, I'm the why whisperer. So I want to know what's your why? What's your purpose? Why do you do this work? Why is it so important to you?
So that's really my why, is I understand so clearly that people need someone to actually hear them, and that when we're heard, we can solve anything. We can, even hard problems, we're able to find answers to. But we have to be heard first. If as long as we're spinning and we don't have access to that prefrontal cortex, we're not going to go anywhere. And so my why is to help people get calm so they can move forward. That's what I wanted, and that's what I want to give to people, because it's so freaking powerful.
Yeah.
That's why I talk about discover the power of listening.
Awesome. All right. And we'll get into some tips and techniques in just a second. But is that something that stems back? See, my theory about your why is that it's the intersection of what we're healing from our past and what we long for our future, for ourselves and others. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm curious, were you a child that didn't feel heard, seen, or heard?
Certainly, my childhood was that. Even more though, I think moving forward, it was wanting to uh, bring that because my education and training was as a United Methodist pastor. And so I went for this master's degree and I got the training, and it was really a desire. Like, I have this, but then when a family member came out to me, I was like, I can't stay here in the church. That's not my path. And so, how do I translate what I'm good at into something now? So,
All right. Well, there's a whole story around that whole family member and your journey as a pastor, but that's not why we're here today. So we're gonna have to do that on a different podcast. But let's talk about listening and its applications. And a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think of sales as the first place to apply that. They might think of it perhaps in terms of leadership or management or team development, that kind of thing. Certainly helps in those realms, relationships. But sales, how did you start to put these two together?
so I was working at a funeral home, and my colleague said to me, "Deb, you could sell anything to anybody." And it really brought me up short. I was like, I wasn't trying to sell people. I'm like, wait, what? What? So I really asked him. I got calm and I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "It's because you listen. It's because you listen." And that was a really large aha moment for me, because I began to really understand that when you do take the time to hear people, they want to work with you. They want you immediately establish that rapport that any salesperson's trying to do. And so it just, to me, is a natural thing. And so I began to realize how I could use those skills and apply it in sales.
Okay, that's very cool. And again, a whole nother story about the funeral home work, but we'll come back to that if we have time. I am curious about your company name, Hold, Hearing Out Life Drama. So where did that come from?
So naming the company at the beginning was really hard. Initially, I only thought that I was going to be listening to people. I had this B2C model in my head as I was building it. And I was like, okay, I really want to listen to those whose family, friends, or coworkers are too close to this problem and they just need somebody to hear them. But venting was coming to mind, and we started to search and we're like, okay, vent, vent, vent. And we were getting like air conditioning vents. I'm like, venting isn't going to work. And so, but I really love the idea of hold space. And so I like the word hold, but I like, that's, and then what if we could make it an acronym? And so we ended up with Hearing Out Life Drama, because that's what we're doing. We're hearing out the life drama and we're holding space. And so it works a little less well for businesses. We have Hold Business Solutions, and I'm still playing in my mind if that's the right thing. We started in 2021, we being my business partner Linda and we started the business in 2021, and so we're still fairly young. We're sorting some things out yet. So
Okay, excellent. All right, so let's talk about sales and listening. What are first of all, what are two or three mistakes that most people make when they think they're good listeners, but they're really not?
so the one I already the
Everybody
one
thinks
I
they're
already
funny and that they're a good listener, and like I every single time I do a group event or something like that, and I ask people what kind of support can you provide. Oh, I'm a great listener. Not always. So everybody thinks they're a good listener. So what are some of the common mistakes that we make?
So one is the mistake actually that I made in our last conversation, which was we often think about where else we need to go in the conversation to bring it to conclusion. I think that's a real challenge, especially in business, because we're wanting to make sure we don't waste time, we move things forward. And so we're trying to make sure that we're staying on top of that, but that can be a real mistake. And I felt myself do that in the last conversation you and I had, where you asked me, was there anything else? And you had said something right before that. And I was like, oh, she's going to ask me that. And my brain went. It can happen even to those of us who are professionals and who are trained. It takes intention every single conversation not to make those errors. Yeah.
Okay. And what else do people do that they think they're being good listeners, but not necessarily, or maybe they don't think they're good listeners, but what are some other mistakes that we make in the listening?
So, especially in a sales conversation, we might rush to the close, and that's certainly not something we want to do. We want to take the time with that and feel our way into it. Um, and listening is really key to find that moment. And um, there's, in terms of a specific mistake, I feel like sometimes people rush to get to that, right? Because they're worried about making their mortgage. They're worried about, having the income that they need to move their life forward. But when you really sit and hold space with somebody and process through without trying to get to an ending point that you want, it can make a difference in the sales process.
Yeah, tough to let go of that agenda. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what a lot of people go into meetings with, or sales conversations, or pretty much anything, is their agenda. And often I think people listen with the um, I'm listening, but really what I'm thinking of is my next thing I want to say. So they're not really listening, they're not really present, they're thinking of the next thing they want to say. What's a way to kind of combat that? Because I think that that's a fairly human characteristic. So how do we not do that?
So I have a free resource. It's called Runaway Freight Train Brain, and in that free resource, it's a mini course. Actually, it's a whole course. It's short, but it's real, and it'll help you with that thing. One of the things I talk about in there is making sure to take notes. And so if you've got ideas or thoughts running in your head, it's going too fast in the conversation, write it down instead of letting it interrupt the flow of the conversation. Just it doesn't have to be a long thing, just a word, just enough to know I'm not going to lose that and I can bring it back.
Awesome. It's so funny. Just as you started to say that, I started to write a note so that I could come back to that.
Thanks.
Okay, so write notes.
Yep.
And what else in terms of just kind of our own way of thinking about it? Because I think a lot of people think communication is really mostly about getting their point across, right? So how do you think about listening?
How do I think about listening? I think about listening always putting the other person first. It's not about me, it's about them. That's how I teach, actually. Everybody tends to think that's where listening starts, is with the other person. It's really not. It starts with me. It starts before I ever start a conversation. It starts with me making sure that I'm in a place of calm and I'm ready to interact with you before we ever start.
Okay. So checking your personal grounding, being present and
Yeah.
ready to hear as well.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. So what are some of the tips that you have around using listening in sales?
Yeah. So one of the things I think is super important in terms of listening is in sales is dialing in the right questions. Um, Being able to ask the question to understand where the real problems are, that's an art. That's
Mm,
really an art. And so, understanding what open ended questions and close ended questions are, digging into the whole relate aspect. I teach the core of listening, and the R stands for relate. Digging into that R piece, where that's the action part of active listening in sales, that's probably the most important piece.
So what does define active listening for us?
Mm-hmm. Active listening is the art of being present in a conversation, being able to hear what somebody else is saying and actively reflect back to them what it is they said in a way that they know they were heard. Now, that doesn't always have to be verbally, that can be non-verbally with nonverbal cues as well. So,
So like you just did. Mm-hmm.
yep, that's it.
And because I think a lot of well, I know I was trained as in way back when in active listening as uh, essentially paraphrasing back what they said, or we're just repeating it verbatim. But it's not that, right?
It's not that. No, it's really, really not that. In fact, if you do that, people are gonna get defensive because they're not gonna feel like you really heard them. What they're gonna feel is you parroted what I just said. That's not the same as real listening.
So describe the difference a little bit between those two, because I think that whole parroting thing is so ingrained in a lot of people versus
Mhm.
real listening. So what do you mean by that?
So if for example, I just said back to you right now, what do I mean by that? Then I'm holding up I'm I'm not being clear with my mirror, right? So I'm giving you a reflection, but it's an exact reflection. Instead, what we want to do is make sure that the image is all of the nuances and the tones and the colors that go, so it goes beyond just that reflection of that. Does that make sense?
It does. I love the phrase, I'm not clear with my mirror. And and it's more than just a reflection. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that that's a beautiful way to phrase it. Um, so, what do you think is something that are some really tangible tools or techniques or framings that can help people to be more present?
So again, having that intention before the conversation ever starts, that's key. Making sure that if you start to lose the calm during the conversation, you find a way to bring it back. And if you can't do it in the conversation, pause the conversation. That's really important. I feel like too often we're trying to go too far too fast. And if we just slow down and keep that calm established, we'll go farther than we really even knew we could. Um, and in sales conversations, I feel like the way we do that is to decide before we ever get on a call with someone, where is it that we need to get them to next? What's the next step for them? And don't necessarily try to go beyond that. Just try to get there. If it goes farther than that, that's fantastic. Amazing. You did great. And in fact, that may happen more than you even expect because you listened. But if you're really clear about what you want your outcome to be, then yeah, it works well.
So most people are probably going to think, well, the outcome would be the sale. When you say next step, what kinds of things do you mean? So what are some examples?
So it depends on your sales process and what it is that you're selling, of course. I mean, obviously, right? But there are some conversations that aren't going to go from an immediate yes, yes, I'm here, and yes, I'm going to go to buy. Some are a very short 15-minute conversation, done. That's fantastic. We like those. Doesn't necessarily mean that's how it will go for everybody. And so knowing what your sales process needs to be in order to get somebody from point A to point B, that's really worth thinking through before you ever start selling.
Yeah, that makes lots of sense. Um, so how is I'm going to kind of frame it this way. A lot of what people struggle with in sales is objections and dealing with objections. And often standard objections are time and money. You know, I don't have time or I don't have enough money or whatever the case may be. How do we listen beneath that? What are some techniques that you have and perhaps questions or ways to move that communication forward more concretely so that people are not just hearing that and getting stopped? Because it's not actually the real communication. It's not actually the real issue.
Yeah, I really feel that when people are bringing the time and the money objection, it's you want to be super careful not to make assumptions beyond what they really mean. I feel like when we do that, we can get ourselves into some real trouble. I'll give you an example. Let's take a real concrete example. Okay, there was a time I was buying a car. This guy had my sale, 100%. I was ready to go with this guy. I just wanted to make really sure before I closed the deal with him that I had done my due diligence as a consumer and looked at another option. And so I said, I'll be back. I will be back. And at that point, he lost his sense of calm and urgency. He felt a sense of urgency, and he started to push me in that sale. So his whole demeanor towards me changed. Everything as soon as he sensed the potential. Oh my God, I'm going to lose the sale, because he sensed my objection,
Mm-hmm.
and his everything changed. And he did actually end up a self-fulfilling prophecy. Literally, he lost the sale with me because he did that, and he didn't trust that he had done well enough during his sales process, because I was coming back, no doubt, 100%. I was coming back to this guy as soon as I went down there and made sure that was, even if it would have cost more, I still would have come back to him. I really honestly would have. That was my reality, but he didn't trust that was my reality, and so
So
that went.
what could he have done instead? What would have worked better?
Oh, it would have worked for me if he would have simply said, I understand that you need to solidify that in your mind. I'll be here when you're ready to come back. Here's my card. I'm happy to talk to you again when you're ready to come back.
Mm.
End of conversation, end of story. You have to trust the other person when they tell you, I'm gonna come back, I need time. I think people a lot of times when they say that, salespeople especially, think they're not going to come back to me, that's not going to work. What if it does? What
Mm.
if it does? What if you listen so well and you're so there for them that they're absolutely coming back to you as soon as they get that next thing in line? And I think so many sales are lost because of that.
Well, and had he checked with you about why you were going away and what you were doing? Like, was he clear that you were going to go and do some due diligence?
Yep.
So he had asked about that before, because I
Yeah.
was going to say it would make sense if someone said, "Well, I'll be back," to just clarify, is there any further information you need? What do you need to do to make your decision? Just to be clear that you're not making assumptions, and you know what they need in order to make a clear yes or a clear no.
Yeah.
That's my objective is always a clear yes or a clear no, not one that's coming from, scarcity or limited thinking or whatever. I'm really happy with a clear no, really happy with a clear yes. I don't want to force yes, and I'm really happy with a clear no if it's not the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's part of the grounding that lets me, be more present with people and listen better. But um, it's also a process to help them get to that clarity sometimes.
It
And
is.
a lot of that requires actually listening to what is going on inside their head. So you mentioned earlier good questions. Do you have some questions that you use when you're in this process that you can then really listen for what's going on?
I do, and I don't actually keep those necessarily in my head at the moment because the list is really long and it's included in the course.
Okay.
And so I've got so many in the course that my head just kind of exploded when you asked me the question. I was like, "Uh-oh, am I going to be able to draw out?" And so I think it's most important. What is it that you hope to accomplish? Right? Where is it that you want to go? And really listening to that, I think it's one of them. Um, Ultimately, yeah, it's making sure it's open-ended. That's key. A closed-ended question, if people don't know, a closed-ended question is really a yes or no answer. You're not trying to ask those kind of questions. You're trying to get them to open up about what their struggle is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you mentioned your course, so tell us about your course and how you work with people.
So I have a course. It's called "Listen Your Way to Increase Sales." It's Gitnuck says that those who listen well earn 42% more, and so that's an incredible statistic. And so my course is intended to help people level up that skill so that they can earn 42% more over the course of their lifetime. I think that's such a fabulous thing. It's just a skill that once you learn it, it's yours for life. Nobody can ever take it away from you. You can apply it in your home life. You can apply it in management. You can apply it anywhere. This is a life skill. This is an essential life skill. And so yeah, the course includes question and answer time with me. And so people, it's an online course. It's very fast to complete. It can be done in a morning if you're one of those people that likes to chunk learn. I don't recommend that. I really think it's better if you break it down a little bit smaller and do it over the course of a week and in smaller chunks. But I think that everybody has the way they learn best. And so that's how I encourage people to approach it. And then once they've gone through the material, come talk. Let's bring your specific sales questions and let's really process what happened and what you might be able to do better.
Awesome. That's great. And I understand you've got a gift for our people around that, right?
Yes, the runaway freight train brain that I mentioned is absolutely will certainly if you're one of those people where your brain's going too quickly, it'll slow it down. Yeah.
And is that one, that's the because I don't have a link for that, but I'll get the link from you. Is that something that's complimentary for them?
Yes, the runaway freight train brain is absolutely free. People
Okay.
can sign up and do that today.
And then what I've got here is 10% off for the course if
Oh
we use
yeah.
the code Sisterhood 24.
Yes, yes. I forgot about that. I did that.
Yeah, that's what
Yes, I did.
okay, so if you will put the link for the course in
Oh, the
the
action
show
course.
notes and in the chat below and so forth, when you
Yeah.
use the code Sisterhood, all caps in here, anyways, Sisterhood 24, then you will get 10% off of that course. So you can get the Runaway Freight Train Brain, which I love. That's a great title for free, and you can check out Deb's course and how to actually really you called it, where'd it go? I wrote it down. The name of the course. Where did I type it? I typed it somewhere. So tell me the name of your course again.
Listen your way to increase sales. It's a long title, and
Thank
it's not as punchy as Freight Train Brain.
Exactly. Oh, there it is. I typed it in front of the code. Listen your way to freight to not to freight trains. Listen your way to increase sales. This would be a good
Yep.
example. Not listening. Okay. So listen your way to increase sales is the course, and um, Runaway Freight Train Brain is the free giveaway that you have. How
Yep.
else can people find you?
I'm on all the social channels. I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn. If you're interested in sending me an email, info@hearingoutLifeDrama.com will find me.
Okay. And hearing out life drama all written out. So .com. And that's, I'm assuming, your website as well,
It is.
hearingoutlife.com.
Yeah.
All right, great. So what's one or two last tips that you have for people when it comes to listening? What would you like to leave everyone with?
Well, we alluded to it earlier, and it's about the fixing. And so when someone comes to you and they go, bada, 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 and I don't know what to do, take a moment and don't just assume that you know exactly what it is that they need. Just ask them, I heard that there was a lot behind that. Did you want me to hold space with you, or did you want to find some answers and to problem solve together now? And just really ask that question and then go where they want to go. I think when we do that, it's incredibly helpful to the other person, and it can really make a difference. That is really honestly the number one listening mistake people make.
Mm. And I really love the framing of that. Do you want me to hold space for you, or do you want us to work together to brainstorm some solutions? So it's
Yeah.
not, would you like me to fix you and your problem? Because that rather arrogant approach that we, including me, sometimes have. But it's really about how can we work together to support you. So I love that framing, Deb. You've got such a big heart. It's really clear that you care deeply about people and about really being present to the best in them, because that's really what we get when we actually really listen, is the best in who they are. And so thank you for doing that for people. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you being here. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your gifts. And so, ladies mostly, and a few smart men who are listening, please reach out to Deb and find out how you can actually listen your way to increase sales. And it's really a really great approach, especially for women, because a lot of the male masculine models, not male, masculine models of sales, because those are practiced by men and women,
Mm-hmm.
can be very about domination and handling objections and knocking them down and so forth and so on, whereas this is really a much more present and in flow way to do sales, much more authentic, I think, in how I would see it or frame it. So this will work much better for most women. So go and listen to Deb's course and listen to her wisdom. Thank you so much for being here, Deb. And may all
Thank
of
you.
you have a week where you feel heard, where you feel seen, where you feel appreciated and valued. And, one of the best ways to do that is be the source of that for someone else. If you are someone who is looking for support, if you are looking for help with growing your business, and you need some concrete support with really growing where you're at, there are lots of experts in the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood Facebook group. There are wonderful experts like Deb who come on our show. And of course, I would be happy to have a conversation with you where I will listen to where you are, where you want to go, and we can brainstorm some solutions for bridging that gap. If I can help you, I will. If not, I know a lot of brilliant experts that I can refer you to who have the solution you may need. So please reach out. I'll put a link for booking a call with me into the chat as well. And I look forward to hearing what you're excited about creating this year. Thanks so much, Deb. Thanks,
Thank
everyone,
you.
for listening, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye.